Wednesday, the 20th of May, 2026. I will call to order with a quorum the Smart Growth Steering Committee for the town of Hadley. Voting members attending are Randy Iser, Mark Dunn, and Ronnie Williams. Pending on behalf of Pioneer Valley Planning Commission is Ken Comia, and Evan
Mastriani.
And from the general interested public, we have Rick Ramucci and Evan Jacobs, that's right, I knew that. I have good eyes. So I think we kind of did the welcomes. We open at this point usually to public comment. So seeing as Evan and Rick, you're the only public here, if you wanted to share any thoughts on the record, questions, or
Nothing right now.
okay.
I did, obviously you sent those emails. I did look everything over briefly. But, maybe like to join and sit on the committee or see how that goes.
We would love help because we're at the point of our next step. Well, actually, I can go to Evan next, but our next step is to basically lock in on what we've drafted so far, and then schedule a time to bring that before the full planning board, of which I'm a representative. Kishore is also a member, not here today, he's a representative, but the five members of the Kishore and I are the greenhorns of the planning board, and the other three have sometimes, I think, 30 years apiece on the, so they bring a wealth of knowledge and experience, and they will sure have interest in what we've come up with and have some good feedback. So then the next step after that will be to come back and digest any feedback we've gotten from them and get if necessary, a version 2, if they aren't happy with version 1, and bring it back to them again before we then take it to the public. And then it will go to a town meeting. So, Evan, any thoughts from the public that you'd like to add at this time?
Yeah, thank you. The only thing that I want to just bring up is we had talked a little bit last session about tiny homes and kind of what the restrictions around those are at the moment. I was wondering if any further discussion has been had about that and about basically just relaxing those rules where appropriate, so it's just easier to get more inventory on the market for people that are struggling to afford full-size homes, for example. Or want to better make use of their property. Just wanted to talk more about that.
Well, I don't know if you if you didn't catch our planning board meeting last night, you can see it on Hadley Media's YouTube, and if you go to the end of the meeting, just go right, like the last 5 or 10 minutes, I brought that up. I specifically referenced the tiny house that was before I was on the planning board, but was shot down, and there was some blowback from the community. And so I don't know the particulars, but what my colleagues said was that was practically a trailer. It didn't have foundations. It didn't have, I think they said it didn't have septic or plumbing.
Yeah, sewer water connections, legitimate ones anyhow.
So I think there's a Board of Health concern, and so I don't think the size is an issue. And now with the state mandating ADUs, if you wanted to add a tiny home on that probably would fit within the guidelines of the ADUs. Case by case.
I thought maybe I misheard it last time, but I thought there was like a 900 square foot minimum or something.
I think it's a 900 max.
Max.
I think it might-
It's 900 square foot max for a by right ADU. And you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but there's minimum room sizes that the building code
Yeah.
talks about. So you,
Livable bedroom size.
yeah, you've gotta have at least minimum for what the building code is allowed. And then obviously you have to have sewer, water connections, electric, all that stuff. But there's no 900-foot minimum for a quote unquote tiny home.
Yeah.
I think, as Mark said, it'll fall under the ADU guidelines now.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
So, I will jump to item 3, PVPC updates.
Yeah, so it's, since the last meeting, we had the meeting on, in April and, we went through some of the current bylaw draft as we currently have it. There was really no, there's probably more questions than anything. But there were no edits that we made to the draft. I think these are probably for future considerations, either as future amendments or future discussion items. I'm sure when this is taken to the planning board with a recommendation from this committee, I'm sure there'll be probably even more conversation. The planning board will want to, and having worked with the planning board in bylaw drafting, they obviously will be putting forward a bylaw, presumably that they will support in front of town meeting. So they do their own due diligence. I think one of the big things that we talked about at the last meeting that I then reached out to, and I will say too, prior to this meeting, I got one correspondence from Bill Rail, who is the 40R guru at the state, HLC. But it wasn't for the questions. I wanted him to review the bylaw to form. But he responded to one of my questions in the email that I sent to him, which was something that came from the last meeting, which was specific to, my question to him was a requirement of 40R to include a measurement for minimum of green space. Because we had a conversation about green space at the last meeting, and his response was it's not a requirement to include a measurement for a minimum of green space, like in your draft bylaw where you include 20% minimum. He offers, on the flip side, there are limitations and requirements associated with the percentage of land that would otherwise qualify as developable land that can be deducted when calculating the allowable densities. This doesn't necessarily mean that the smart growth zoning cannot require a greater percentage of open space be set aside, just that any amounts greater than this and generally not permanently preserved through the use of a conservation restriction would still be included in the land area used to calculate the allowable density. And then he offered the actual regulation from, and then his note. So, I think the committee has arrived at a bylaw where, for the most part, it seems ready for review by the planning board. Still waiting for the overall review from Bill Rail. I don't think that there's going to be an issue with it, just in my review of it. With regards to form for any reason, I think there are some pieces that maybe the committee might want to take or, leave up to the planning board to make that determination. But I think that there was conversations, I'm looking at page 5, where this still exists as a comment. The steering committee previously discussed differentiating non-residential uses between sub-districts. And this is not yet reflected in the bylaw. The committee should determine whether or not to limit or expand specific non-residential uses differently in each sub-district. I don't recall our conversation at the last meeting discussing this, but I wonder if the statement, which is above that yellow note, the total gross floor area devoted to residential uses within a mixed-use development project shall be at least 51% of the total gross floor area of the project. If that is, something you want to just continue to move forward with, or,
Would you repeat that? What was it, 50?
so, the sentence above that yellow box.
I
It's
don't
on page 5, because we don't have
I
you.
don't have a yellow
Oh,
box.
sorry. Oh, it should be, sorry.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was printed in black and white, sorry. It's the sentence before committee note. So it's, the total gross floor area.
So it's it's at the bottom of page 5, Mark. It's the last
Second to
sentence.
last there.
Total gross area devoted to residential.
Oh, that's
Then
just a
I'm
little-
gonna make a copy here for folks if they want.
Yeah,
That'll be at least 51%. Yeah. I think that was in keeping that, we didn't want to have someone use this to put a big box store and then put 2 little apartments and say,
Yeah.
we're mixed use.
Um, let's see. Gross floor area. So I'm just thinking about this out loud. If I have, and hypothetically, I've got a 2,000 square foot footprint, and on the bottom, I've got commercial. The second floor is the same square footage as the first floor. Now I got 50% on the bottom, 50% on the top. So I think it makes more sense to make it 50%.
Yeah. Carve out a utility closet on the first floor.
Yeah,
For different storage.
yeah.
Well, you could argue that there's gonna be a stairwell or something going up to the second floor.
You could.
That would be attributable to it. But yeah, I see your point.
but what does gross floor area mean of the commercial? This,
Yes.
I think gross floor just means the
That-
outline. It doesn't take out the walls or
Partitions.
utilities.
Or stairwells.
It's,
Yeah.
right, it's the total footprint.
So I just,
But if the stairwell was of one use and the other was the other, right?
it's still gross floor area.
Yeah, right.
So I just, to clean it, make it clean, I think 50% makes sense. That's my opinion.
I'd be willing to have it less. I mean,
What, the,
less than 50. I'm just thinking of some places where then they use some of the second floor for offices or something in their commercial.
but I think we're only gonna, are we gonna limit it to the first floor commercial only? Is that how that's what I thought.
Okay,
Yeah. That was the intent.
You know, the goal, as I understand this bylaw, is more to increase housing than it is to increase commercial stuff, right?
Right, yep.
Right.
So,
It's only the neighborhood village district.
There's two.
Yeah, but this is what this is pertaining to, or
I think it's for everything.
everything?
Yeah, I think the first few pages or whatever are for everything,
Okay.
and then it gets broken down at the end.
Mhm.
Section 12 gets into land standards. Then not until you get to B that you get into the separate districts. Page 21. And there's that 51% again on page 21. That's gonna become 50. That's another spot to catch it. Okay, thank you, Ken. Anything else to?
Yeah, I think we left, the last conversation of the previous meeting was related to the number of affordable housing units. This is page 7, section 5.1, and under committee note, the affordability threshold, where there is a requirement under 40R that 20% is 20% for projects of 13+ units. This particular bylaw draft goes further by requiring affordability for all projects. Also confirm whether the 25% rental requirement is desired.
So does the state mandate 20%?
That's the minimum.
Okay, because we were having a lively discussion about affordability last night in regards to how almost impossible it is to do that without some kind of huge subsidy.
Right.
And so we don't want to get in a situation where we basically cost ourselves out of this happening.
Mhm.
And, but if the state says we can only, 20 is the minimum, then I guess 20 is the minimum.
For this district. What we were talking about last night, I was assuming we would apply to other, or to the underlying district. If they choose to use the smart growth overlay,
Right,
then they get the minimum 20%.
right.
If they want to do,
Something else.
yeah,
Yeah.
like Barry did Elf in the,
Yeah,
yeah, then the, when we had it at 15
15.
and we were talking about maybe 10.
yeah, or whatever.
The conversation about rental units,
Does that come from the state?
that came from, I think, the committee, because I remember, Andrew had a comment at the last meeting about there was another gentleman in the room that suggested to remove or to make that 20% for rentals.
25% rental dwelling units. Less than. Yeah, I mean, I think, I'm thinking that the goal there is affordable for people who can't afford a down payment to, to buy.
Mhm.
Which section?
We're on
It's in 5.1, it's about halfway down.
Well, because they're different. They're laid out differently.
Oh, are they?
Yeah,
Okay.
because your page 7 is my page 6. So anyhow, we got that figured out.
Yeah. Yeah, these copies don't have the comments, it's committee notes in it.
Oh,
And that's why,
He has more.
here you are. So I've got one of each, I've got the one that doesn't have the committee notes, and then somebody passed me the one.
Yeah,
oh, yeah. Oh, okay, I see.
Okay.
and I just want to confirm, so somebody's in an affordable unit.
Mhm.
And their life's getting better and they start making more money, they have to move? Because they no
Because
longer,
there's an annual monitoring that takes place, right? So there would be some sort of discussion
On how that's
on how
enforced,
that's
right?
enforced.
if they have purchased, if they bought a unit and their income goes up.
Good question.
Yeah.
We're trying to make people's lives better.
I mean, that's our goal, our goal is to give them a leg up to
Mhm.
have housing so they can get a job, so they can.
I'll ask, it's worthwhile to see what that experience looks like for those folks that might all of a sudden,
Yeah.
again, they would need to qualify annually. But what does it mean if you purchase a home with those and qualify under that?
Yeah, I would anticipate the majority of it, these units would be rental. Because if, in order to make this work and to be affordable,
Mhm.
it's gonna have to be a lot of units in a single building. Otherwise, it just gets outrageously expensive. It's probably gonna be outrageously expensive anyhow.
Mhm.
But I would anticipate that unless somebody's gonna make a bunch of condos out of it, that it's gonna be rental stuff.
Yeah.
I think the question just for that section was, if you were okay with the way this read and for the, rent agreement.
I think having a minimum speaks to our concern about those who can't afford to buy. And as Randy said, I could see it actually being 100%, you know, under these type projects could be 100% rental. But if a developer finds that they do a market study and find that there is a affordable purchase market, then I wouldn't want to prohibit it.
Yeah.
What's your, I mean, have you seen anything like that in other 40Rs or?
I can't say that I have, yeah. Well, because really, when you're trying to, when I deal with 40Rs in the initial phase, it's like, okay, let's make sure it complies. And then you want to see if any development is actually happening with the 40R. I think probably successfully, maybe East Hampton, Northampton, South Hadley to some extent, they have they just have a new Wayfinders development of 60 units that are in the smart growth district.
Yeah, because didn't we hear that like South Hadley went a long time before anything?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that has been their experience. The thing with bylaws, obviously, and because you work with the planning board, is that they can be amended, especially, I think the big thing right now is getting it passed, because this is a big deal for the town. And I think, the committee has worked well together to identify using the template and using the guidance that the state has provided, to, tinker with the areas of the bylaw where you feel like that would be most impactful for Hadley. I think at the end of the day, it's a political decision that is made, right? And you kind of address from there. I know communities that have passed 40R districts probably will revisit if nothing has been developed in in the initial years and tinker accordingly. But the fact that they have a 40R district, I think, is something to be said, that they're really, serious about this, about mixed use development and the inclusion of affordability into that calculation. Being able to live in the region. And I think, we hear about Hadley and your subsidized housing inventory, you're meeting, your 10%. And this is value added to some extent, right? Because you're meeting your 10%, and this is giving even more opportunities for more to be added to the subsidized housing inventory. But I think I don't see that the numbers that you landed on are troublesome. I think it's just a matter of ensuring that the conversation, between the board that will, recommend its approval presumably, and this committee, and sharing with the planning board, and communicating that need of housing. I think how. But I think the percentages here are appropriate based on how you landed at that. Yeah. The other item, so the monitoring agent, which may be the local housing authority or other qualified housing entity, shall be designated by who? Planning boards, select boards,
So I don't know.
Let's see.
Affordable housing trust.
And when you say monitor, Ken, what are we monitoring?
So you see, it's, if you look at the like 1, 2, or 2, number 2, it's the income eligibility, things like that. They're the ones that will be ensuring that the people living there are, qualified to live there based on the requirements of the affordability of the,
Mhm.
qualifying under what is
Yeah.
affordable in town.
Okay, so that sounds like that's gonna be a potentially intense job if we had a bunch of units built.
Well, is it an annual survey or gathering of, how does that?
Is that not a state thing?
The state,
Assuming the state will monitor us.
they,
It would be making sure that, in essence, that the monitoring before that, making sure that the units constructed comply with basically what's being set out in your overlay district for this new smart growth, and making sure that they're compliant to obviously what you folks are saying in your bylaws, but also what the state, like you were saying, is saying as well. So it's in essence doing a lot of that, I would say, enforcement of the bylaw activity itself.
So, it's the bylaw activity, and there are requirements for affordable housing in the Commonwealth. So there's things related to, maybe any sort of lotteries that might need to
Mhm.
happen for this type of unit. I'm just reading a list of rights from Mass Housing. Reviewing and approving marketing plans for said building. Monitoring, doing a lot of monitoring of the sales and resale monitoring, and then enforcing.
Yeah.
So those are the, and the thing is, you could designate whatever entity to do this. I think it's a matter of who's gonna designate that person or entity to do that.
Don't think we have a vibrant housing authority. Didn't we kind of,
Isn't that vacant on,
didn't Amherst,
Well, we have the affordable housing, whatever,
Affordable Housing Trust?
trust,
Doesn't somebody monitor that now? If
but
there's
so,
affordable units in Hadley at the 10%?
I think the state does that. I don't think the town would be, allowed to determine that, because
Sure.
they might play games that
Yeah, in free, yeah.
aren't appropriate. But just to be clear, Ken, this monitoring thing, the town would have to make sure, to Ronnie's point, that somebody just got $100,000 raise and now they don't meet the income qualifications anymore. They need to find a different place to live. The town will be responsible for reviewing their income and determining that they should not be able to live in this place.
It's the town, who the town designates.
But I understand, but I mean, someone in the town has to do
It
that.
sounds like, or you get a third party
Like a house.
who's bonded that can take,
Well, as this bylaw suggests, a monitoring agent, which may be the local housing authority or other qualified housing entities, shall be designated by whichever board, the
Right.
designated official. So in other communities, it is the housing authority, because if they have an inventory of housing units that the housing authority manages or, is in charge of, presumably, that housing authority and staff within there would ensure that people are qualified to live there. I know that, I think you mentioned, Martha, just briefly right now, that Amherst might be your housing authority, or like managing maybe Hadley.
didn't I hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it could possibly be that kind of entity then.
Okay, so, but what you want to know is who should be the appointing authority to determine the monitoring agent. So, I would think the select board would be an appropriate start for that.
Yeah. They might take recommendations from the planning board.
You know, definitely would, yeah, I envision that would be the way to go.
I think that's appropriate.
I mean, if we became a more vibrant municipal machine, maybe the land use coordinator, but right now I think she's stretched between.
Yeah. Right, So we'll just have to figure that out. I think they need to fill in the blank on that one. So let's just insert select board and go from there.
Right.
As Ken said, if that doesn't work, we can change it in the future.
Did you have a question? Evan had a question.
Yes, Evan?
I was just wondering if there were, kind of different like levers that could potentially be used rather than like potentially like that unit just becomes unsubsidized rather than like making someone actually like move out of where they've been living. Maybe we could do it so that there's like a pool of those like applications and there's just maybe a max number of I don't know. I'm just trying to think in terms of like some way of keeping people in where they're living without having to force them out, because they're a success story. I don't know.
It seems, I mean, I was thinking to myself that maybe you give them a 12-month grace period. If you qualify out, we don't kick you out on the street, but we give you time to find other housing. Or if there, maybe that's something that the housing authority handles or whoever that is, that if there are units that aren't occupied, maybe this one goes to market rent and one of those unoccupied becomes available as affordable, and it not making you move out of your physical unit, but it could shift so that the stock, the percentage stays, but in theory, there wouldn't be empty housing stock.
Yes.
Would a tenant have a choice to subsidize part of it and kick in the rest to remain in that unit? Almost like a
That's a
healthcare,
really good question. Yeah.
like the sliding scale,
Right, yeah.
where it's like, 50% gets covered, we cover the rest because we crossed that threshold.
Mhm.
And whatever that tipping point is, you don't wanna make it, unaffordable.
Yeah.
Right.
Right, and the big thing is we have to keep the number of affordable units the same or more. We can't lessen them.
Yes,
So, and I appreciate what Evan one is saying, that we don't want to kick somebody out of their house just because,
Right.
that reminds me of somebody who's on welfare and they increase their salary and they take away
They say
their
you're
benefit, so they're
51%.
back to the same place they're at. What's the incentive to try to improve myself? So if there's a way we can make it so that people don't have to be moving every year.
Right. You don't want to,
You
have
know,
them cycling in and out, and, you don't qualify, next year you do.
Right.
ideally, in the perfect world, there'd be new units being built and
Sure, to
new
balance it
affordable
out.
ones.
And I should note that especially if we're talking about things regarding inventory, and I think the percentage kind of matter that you folks were mentioning is a useful point as well to mention in terms of creating some kind of program that is a phased approach versus something where it's either 20% and that's the calculation of the units versus, okay, a stock, available. I can recall that at least from my experience with the city of Springfield, when I was working for their Office of Planning and Economic Development, for the Elm Street apartments that we were doing there, it was mainly, we had a similar 20% threshold for affordable units there. That was something as well that we had conversations with regarding where folks move up or down income wise. And it was for that, because it's an apartment building, it's the same, it was a similar kind of discussion point that they landed on where they would create a sliding scale for if someone went above that affordability threshold, that apartment unit would then be classified as above, so it wouldn't qualify as 20% stock, but then they would switch to another unit there in that apartment building that would become, then add to it, so it'd be a swap and replace.
If there was an apartment available.
Correct, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, that seems to make the most sense to me.
Yeah.
That way people don't have to be potentially constantly moving.
Mm-hmm.
It's complicated.
Yeah,
I think it's good to promote stability too, then people will want to stay here more and, build a real life here.
yeah, no, that makes sense, Evan, for sure.
And we talk about a monitoring agent. What about enforcement? How's that handled? Does that go to like the county sheriff? Like, you have to, you know, you have been notified. I mean, I don't want to ever go there, but that's a question I can imagine one of my colleagues is gonna ask. Because we at the planning board have we have no enforcement. Our enforcement, we bounce to the building department.
Well, so, and you're talking enforcement of what, Mark? If somebody
Of what-
misbehaves?
Whatever the monitoring agent,
I think it's whatever that yearly
yeah,
annual,
Mhm.
census is on salaries and incomes and projections and whoever that is delivering the message to on our side, the town side.
so then the housing
Who's
authority,
enforcing that and letting those tenants know that your rent may be going up $40 because,
or your eviction or something,
yeah, yeah.
I don't know. Certainly not
Well, if, I
where we
think,
wanna go, but
I think eviction would be a different thing because the town's not gonna own these things.
No,
They're gonna have regulations that the state will mandate and some that this bylaw will mandate. But if I'm the developer, I own this building and Mr. Panuzzi is one of my tenants and he's trashing my apartment, then it's up to me to evict him, not the town.
But you go through the sheriff then.
Whoever I would
Yeah.
have to go through. Yeah. Yeah, it's not easy, but
But if
it wouldn't be the town's responsibility.
But if living in your affordable unit, he's paying you rent, our goal is achieved and he climbs the ladder and gets a raise, how does that get enforced? If we have a monitoring agent that says you can't stay, or no,
Or you have to pay
no
more.
longer qualify, yeah.
You have to pay more, so.
But
that-
then we still need to have, like we said, we want to swap.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
what we can't swap, if there are no other units available.
Yeah,
And-
that we've got to factor that in somehow,
Yeah,
because that is a possibility.
yeah,
And again, we don't want to throw them out in the street,
right.
so we have to have some kind of stipulation that says, if we can, if the state will allow it, because I don't know how picayune the state's gonna be about these things, but we somehow have to factor all that into to how we can deal with it.
I think Evan had a question.
Go ahead. Do you have another question, Evan?
Oh, I put it in the chat, but I was just wondering what information the town has access to be able to, like, I was thinking like the state, the state income taxes every year are a fair proxy for income, and you can multiply it to figure out like how much their income is shifting.
I'm assuming the town doesn't know that, but HUD gathers, with their Doge or whatever, they can see the information we can't see.
Mm.
And would they, if somebody applies to rent one of these places, I'm guessing they would be required as part of the process to say, we're gonna check your income every year, and they have to say, yes, I will allow you to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And that's what Mass Health does. You get these eligibility reviews every so
Yeah.
often, and if you don't send it back, they then can kick you off. They give you good warning, but they can also ask for copies of your income tax and stuff
Right.
like that.
Yeah, I don't know, but I'm imagining that there's probably, when you renew, there's an affidavit, you say,
Mhm,
my income is not over this level.
right.
And there's probably fine print that says, if we have reason to believe that's not true, we noticed your new $87,000 car and you need to submit a
Tax return or whatever.
1040 or something,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I'm sure the state has ways to
Yeah.
get that information.
That's the state. That's again, the state is our enforcer. If
On some of that.
we monitor, but pick it up,
The affordable rate, that's also on a sliding scale, like it may go up or down
So-
depending on
what's defined as affordability? I'd have to look more closely into what HLC is basing their affordability figures off for this specific program, but I know that for my experience, it's usually tied to HUD requirements and HUD income limits. And so for those, I believe, those typically will get updated on an annual basis, for what those income limits will be. I know they just put out actually a new income limit sheet that we got from HUD,
For 20.
for 26. Yep, so,
Our AMI used to be based on Springfield. I
Yep.
think in the year or two ago, it changed to Northampton area.
Yep.
Yeah.
yep, so things have shifted, things will typically kind of shift from a year-to-year
And I
basis.
think we're 80% of that. and
Yep.
Housing is 30% of the 80%.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, it's around that. Mhm.
And it's number of units, but if you had 10 5-bedroom units, could you just have one bedroom? Or two, do they have to be comparable, or can they just be single studio
So
size?
that would be, yeah, depending on a unit, it would probably be, you'd probably tie it more towards what you had said before with the whole, what would constitute a unit, which is, separate living space for someone. So, yeah, separate bedroom, things of that nature. If it's talking about, if you're talking about like a double, or let's say a 2-family unit, that's when you get into the conversations of how many people can live in that unit.
How many bunk beds in the bedroom?
So I'm fairly new to this, but the 40R district, is this gonna be an additional district, or,
It's an overlay.
Mm-hmm.
okay, so you can still do what we've been doing for years, almost like what you're doing at Village Barn?
You can apply under
Okay,
the base zone.
Yeah.
Or you can opt to
Mm-hmm.
apply under the
40R.
okay,
overlay district.
Mhm.
All right. We currently have some overlay districts, right? We have the central
Village overlay,
village center, yeah.
yeah.
So, senior housing overlay.
okay,
So to Mark's point, if you decided you wanted to build a Costco.
Yep.
You wouldn't do that under 40R.
sure,
So you follow the current regulations that we have.
Yep.
And then if you decided you wanted to do something mixed use,
Mhm.
then you go under the 40R regs and you have to follow those.
The mixed use. Remind me, because it's been a month since our last meeting, and 2 months, probably 3 since we talked about parking. I know the 40R, the state really wants 0 to minimal parking required, because they want it to be on the public transit. They want it to be geared towards people that maybe choose not to have a car or can't afford to have
Right,
a vehicle.
right.
You do mixed use. Now you don't want someone putting in, I'll use Essalon because the planning board, my colleagues really
That's a perfect
have
example.
have a bone to pick there. If they had apartments above, you would want the adequate parking for the commercial.
Right.
So it had to be, so our parking requirements would only apply to the, is there language that in a mixed use, the commercial aspect must meet the underlying zoned parking requirements?
I don't know what it
Because you don't want them to get off with we were like, I don't know, what is it, 2 spaces per, one space per unit, or?
Right, it's for, 1.5, for a 1-bedroom.
Yeah,
And keep in mind that Essalon was an anomaly in that it's at the corner of West Street where you could actually park. Anybody else that's on Route 9, if you don't have adequate parking on your property, you are not parking out in the street. So, I mean, my property with the barbecue, if they had a really busy night and the parking lot is completely full, well, somebody pulls in and can't find a place to park, guess what? They leave. They can't go out onto the side street and park. So, Essalon is not a good example, but I understand why we would use it. So, yeah, Route 9 is very limited. No parking on Route 9.
yeah, our town, I think the only on-street parking we have is on Railroad. Right there
where there's spaces, yeah.
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 By, what is that, West Street?
And that's not even town property.
No,
Yeah.
I think I digress. Back to you, Ken.
And just, Evan one, don't waste your time putting anything in the chat because we don't have time to monitor that. So if you want to say something, just speak right up.
Yeah, and I can't read that from here.
Here's something.
I have vision issues, amongst other issues.
Your vision
I was,
challenge.
I was wondering about the parking thing since it's been brought up a couple times. I mean, what options do we have for that, like as a town? Because, you know, people, you know, unfortunately, we are a very car-heavy town, you know, and especially with everyone coming up and through the corridor. So, I mean, if we want people to stick around and buy things, they do have to have somewhere to put their car.
Yep, definitely. And is the state says we don't need parking, but we can, as a town, we can alter that, can we not?
Yes, you can, and, you know, you do have, you've contemplated on section 7.1, number of parking spaces for, for residential. Obviously, commercial, any sort of commercial mixed use would be dictated by the use in your parking schedule. Well, but you also offer in this section, opportunities for shared parking and reduction in parking requirements. So there's venues, avenues for addressing parking within the smart growth district.
Yeah, there's what I was talking about under 7. It's got the non-residential, so that's your mixed use.
Yep.
It says
Right,
4 spaces per 1,000 square foot gross floor area. That would be your first floor commercial.
Yeah, and
4 spaces is,
not enough.
no, if it's 10 by 20, you're at 200 a space. So 200 times 4, you're at 800. Well, you would have to have the aisle too, but,
Well, so this says 4 spaces per 1,000 square feet of gross floor area.
so that's not even 1-to-1, and our town currently is at 2-to-1.
Yeah, and I don't agree with that bylaw in lots of situations. And this, I don't think is enough. I'm just trying to think how big the barbecue is. It's maybe 2,500 square feet. Let's call it 3,000 square feet. So this is saying that they would need 12 spaces, and that's nowhere near enough. So I think it's gotta be based on use. I don't think that this, makes sense to have this 4 spaces maximum. That needs to be, subject to the individual use.
Right.
And I know that the current bylaw tries to, contemplate future development. Let's say I have a warehouse that's 10,000 square feet and I have 3 employees. We need 3 spaces for the employees
Yep.
and a couple of spaces for delivery trucks.
Yep.
5 spaces, but the bylaw says I gotta have 20,000 square feet of
Yep.
parking. And the theory behind that is, what if I sell my warehouse and it turns into Costco?
Yeah.
And they need all
Sure.
that space or whatever. And I understand that, but I also disagree with it in that if I sell my warehouse to you who wants to put in a retail,
Yep.
that's up to you to go to the planning board and say, this is what I want to do.
Right.
This is what I need for parking according to your bylaw, and this is how I can provide it.
Can I do what I want to do on this site?
Right.
You need to have this much parking.
Right.
Can you find it and still meet all the other, right?
If you can, great. If you can't, then move on to the next site.
Our chair on the planning board constantly cites that example.
Right.
And what you just said is what I'm usually thinking is, well, then they can't sell it to that person. But then we also allow reserve parking, like we allow, they have to show that they have, I guess we don't require them to build all of it.
Right, right.
And that's where, I'm not clear on how that gets determined. Maybe that's subjective to the use of the need,
Yeah,
and we don't have
so I think,
we don't have a codified calculation for this use, this one, and that use.
right.
Yeah.
So anyhow, that's something
Yeah.
we need to hash out a little bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the conversation, I feel like since I've been with PVPC and working with the planning board, we've always kind of have tried to tackle the discussion of parking and sharing the examples from other communities. You know, obviously Hadley has its own regulations of how they navigated that. But the presumption here is that you're going to be relying on that, you know, that particular non-residential calculation unless you might be looking to amend your overall parking
Mhm.
schedule and,
Yeah.
you know, what, and doing it use space, right? So, I think the other thing that was flagged, so some are notes for us, just doing some calculations of the district, so what we printed out a large map. So we're now on it looks like there's a committee note here on B1 point, after the chart on B1.2, which are your permitted uses in the East Sub-District. Committee discussed allowing more commercial opportunities in the East Sub-District should the non-residential uses from section 4.2B be expanded here.
So where are we, Ken?
Toward the end,
Yeah, I got the B part.
Page 21, maybe?
your B 2 point. Are you under B 2.2 or,
So it's right above, actually, B.1.3.
oh, B 1, okay.
Yeah, so the statement right above that, which talks about the allowance for more.
Define B 1.3, it's right above that. Except it's one of his committee notes, so it might not be on your copy. Do you have that?
No. Okay, so the committee discussed allowing more commercial opportunities in the East Sub-District, meaning more different types of commercial. Is that what that means?
That's how I read that.
Okay. Should the non-residential uses from section 4.2B be expanded here?
So the East District is basically the malls.
Yeah,
As opposed to the community, the
yeah.
village center.
So 4.2B. Yeah, I know we've talked about this a little bit in the past, and my thought on this is, what are we afraid of might come in as a business that we would not think is appropriate? And, I mean, my thought is anything that's allowed in the business district would be allowed here.
And if we tie it to that, because that is not, it is, what's the phrase, if it's, the way our code is written in town, it's not, I don't know if inclusive is the word, but if it's not explicitly spelled out then it's not allowed.
Right. Yep.
So it's more exclusive.
Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah, I mean,
that's not the right word,
I
but
try to think about what we've got now. So let's say the Hampshire Mall goes belly up,
what was the problem? Oh,
and
there was an adult bookstore in town. That was a hot issue, right?
again, but that's only allowed in the industrial zone.
Okay,
So that's not anything we need to be concerned with.
okay.
But anyhow, the Hampshire Mall goes belly up, and somebody comes in and wants to put 1 billion apartments on the second floor.
Yeah.
And still maintain the commercial space. So I don't see any problem with allowing whatever's gonna go in there, as long as it's not an adult bookstore, which is not allowed, but anyhow, I just feel like we have the potential to limit something that could be good that we haven't thought about. And then because we didn't think about it, it's not allowed. So I think that needs to be pretty open-ended, however we have to word that.
An escape.
Making the Hampshire Mall into a big like live work space is something I actually really would love to see happen. I think there's a lot of potential, but obviously the structure would need to be improved.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of, I mean, did you go to town meeting, Evan, one?
Mhm. Yep.
So we were talking about that 75,000 square foot limit and the fact that we don't have space for any of that. Anything we do pretty much on Route 9 is going to be either some minor infill or rehabbing the existing buildings or reusing their properties. There's no new property that's big enough to do anything of that size. So, you know, a lot of this is gonna depend on.
Yeah, if you were gonna redevelop Jacques Panay or something like that, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like if we were able to get a good developer and that wanted to work on that, it would be a real asset to us during the winter because it would be a really like great open air place for people to hang out and spend money and all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you and I see this as an opportunity to really enhance the town, and there's a lot of people who look at it from the other aspect of it, 180 degrees from that. So,
We don't want one more toilet hooked to our
not only that,
sewer
but,
system.
yeah,
Well, yeah, it's not going on open farmland.
right,
Really, you know,
right.
areas that are protected.
And the big deal right now, as we know in this town, we need revenue.
Mhm.
And the only way we're gonna get it is to densify.
Right, yeah.
And Route 9 is the place to do it.
Right, you go outside of that and you get aquifer protection, you get
Right.
protected species, you get wetlands. You know,
So, and Route 9 is built up enough.
Already happened.
Yeah, it's already there. If it changes a little, if the look of it changes, that's fine
That's okay.
with me. It's not gonna take any farmland or any residential areas and turn them into something that we don't want to see, so.
I actually had a question about so if a mega development wanted to come in, for example, is there a way we could put it in so that they're required to contribute back to the public works to actually like shore up the town to be able to handle what they want to do?
That is a possibility, I believe, if it was conventional. I don't know how a conventional build, I don't know how it would be under this 40R.
yeah, if they went through site plan review, then these are things that can be negotiated. Right?
Yeah, and the town would have to determine that the sewer capacity, for instance, couldn't handle this new development, and then they would try to work with the developer and say, hey, if you do such and such.
Oh, no.
Well, it's so many things, right? It's sewer, it's public safety, because all of a sudden there might be, you know, a couple hundred new people to protect,
Yeah.
all that good stuff.
Yeah, no, I hear you. There's plenty of issues, but we hopefully we get it worked out. I don't think that it would be something that you just allow people to come in. Can you get rid of that? Oh, there's one second.
What, just do I just.
Yeah, you can stick. Yeah, perfect. There you go.
Okay, beautiful.
I want to also just very quickly mention another possible option for kind of what you mentioned, Evan. One is not so much through this maybe work that kind of effort could be pursued, but there's also the option that the town could pursue of what's, I don't know if you folks are aware of a district increment financing agreement. So they're DIP for short. So it's a tool that is used throughout the state, for certain economic development projects that come in. What it does is it creates a district, around a certain area. So in this respect, it could be around whatever that development would be. The most recent example you could draw from would be the Eastfield Mall redevelopment in Springfield that they did. What it does is it pretty much is exactly what you were saying, Evan. Is it any increase in property tax value that's generated from that, has to be, it's paid out by the developer, but then that fund has to go specifically for infrastructure and public works improvement. That would probably be something that would be voted in by a town meeting to enter into a different agreement, depending on who the developer is. But that would probably be another avenue if you wanted to get that kind of method accomplished, or that kind of objective accomplished.
Yeah, and Evan,
District income.
District
The,
increment financing.
there are talks with the town of
Increment
Amherst
financing agreement.
to send some of Hadley's sewage to their treatment plant, which is supposed to be, it was built as a regional plant. So we're trying to get that kind of stuff worked out so that we would have more capacity.
It'd still be
Definitely would love the sewer up by my house at some point. I'm on Cold Spring Lane and we're all on septic.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, I know.
I'm right by the high school, I'm right by the elementary school, and I'm on septic still.
Yeah, we're-
It'd
yours
still
is-
be site plan review and then sewer impact fees that would be
Oh, yeah.
that whole thing. So
Yeah,
something that large scale would be a huge contribution, maybe
Yeah,
spark something a little bit different.
yeah.
I guess like the way I just keep looking at all this is like, what is the flywheel that we're trying to enable? And like, how can we just sort of push on each piece of it, so
Yeah.
that at the end of everything, Hadley's the recipient of the benefit.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and once, if this all comes to fruition, then we have to have developers that are intrigued enough to want to come to town and build here, so.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about that. I think UMass has a bigger role to play here in terms of like a partnership, just because they have such an insane amount of economic activity that they could very easily direct some of that our way if we have, an appropriate place for the types of facilities that we're willing to host. Let's put it that way.
Mhm.
I also think, I get my paycheck from the university, so I have to give that disclaimer first. But they are kind of the golden goose. We complain about what we don't like about them, but if they weren't here, it's like when my father lived in southern Vermont, he'd complain about the tourists and the leaf peepers and all the ski traffic. I'm like, well, that's where your revenue comes from. If the university weren't here, would we have malls? Would we have, would we have Home Depot? They'd be in Greenfield or,
Right,
We'd be Hatfield, right?
yeah.
right. And then the other side of that is that UMass is a state institution.
Mhm.
So it's different than if it was a private entity.
How are we doing, Ken? I just want to be mindful of time. We have 20 minutes left on the clock.
Yeah, I think we've addressed the committee notes that, or at least had conversations around it. I don't know if, the committee wants to take more, concrete, steps to change the language that has been drafted. I know we've identified some future discussion on parking. Maybe that's something that you leave to the planning board, in your suggestion, if you are ready to make some sort of recommendation based on the way this bylaw is written. I think to close the conversation, it is coming up with whatever is going to be the final bylaw for the planning board to review and then start their conversations around that. In addition to, what the role of this committee will be in forwarding this to the planning board. Obviously, you as a member of the planning board, you and Kishore, as members of the planning board, can speak to, you know, what has transpired from this. I think that the bylaw, other than some of those spots, you know, I think it's whatever your formal recommendation, I think will go to the board. Obviously, this grant lasts until June 30th. We can always take the next month to like finalize if we wanted to do that and then give that to the planning board starting in July. But I think it's really up to like maybe how you might want to look at it. Like finalizing this process.
Yeah, so my thoughts are get it to the planning board ASAP because I think we're pretty well there.
Yeah.
And the parking discussion, I believe would make sense if we had a by board between the planning board and this committee, just so we could all hash it out, because I think they're gonna wanna participate in that parking discussion.
Yeah, yeah.
Has there been like a second pass over any like environmental related restrictions for this district?
I think they're going to be self-directing, if you will. If there are wetlands or anything of that nature, that's going to come into play when somebody proposes a project.
Right.
It's too hard to nail down exactly where wetlands are and stuff like that. We had talked earlier about excluding certain lots because maybe they were wet, and my thought on that was just put them in there. If they're wet, they can't use it. And that'll be determined at the time of some proposal.
Yeah, I was thinking just in terms of, and this is definitely something that you can enforce at the request time, but just, you know, people purchasing adjacent lots and then dumping and things like that. Just trying to avoid those sort of situations since we have such like amazing wildlife here. We got to keep it protected.
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah, I think, and also if we want to review the map and just ensure that we're okay with those particular parcels that are included. Or if there are ones that you might want to add. And again, I think one of the things to note from here is that you identify the parcels, but then you identify of those parcels, which is in those sub-districts. So there's not entire parcels in there, but rather portions of parcels.
Yeah, and I don't remember if we addressed that. I think we opted not to do the sawtooth, because there are some very long,
Sure.
Okay.
you know, agricultural like lots in this town.
Gotcha.
The zone would look like a Rorschach. So I think we were gonna have a more cohesive boundary. So then, do we need to put into here? Or that's something that we put a little placeholder and ask the planning board to say, you know, what is our policy, or we suggest what the policy is, that if your parcel hits the district, you can build, or you can build within the district, you know, you can.
Right.
Yeah, I know that there's some language that exists out there for communities that do have kind of a bisection of like the frontage or the front part of a parcel that faces the right of way up to a certain amount of size, you can do more intense uses, or that's where you would imagine the density would belong, right? Versus rear of the parcel. I think that's an appropriate thing.
This one makes me nervous. And that might be an APR.
Is that Arrowhead over there?
So this is, yeah, that's Arrowhead. And it's got frontage on Spruce Hill, that somebody's gonna think that they can come in off Spruce Hill
Right.
and develop that, and that would not be good. That road is not appropriate. It's only,
Right.
the right of way is only 33 feet wide. The
Right.
pavement's about 16 feet wide. So I just think that one is not a good idea. And again, it might be an APR, so it could be a moot point. But other than that, I don't see any thing that seems out of the ordinary.
It's all wet, isn't it?
So again, that, let somebody determine
Right,
that it can't work.
right.
Because we could be missing a nice little area that, because we think it's wet and it's not really.
So just because it's wet and it's on a 10-acre piece and 2 acres are wet, can those 2 acres still count towards open space?
In the,
Project.
the current bylaw, the answer, I believe, is no.
Okay.
I don't think wetlands can count as open space, but I don't know what the state,
Yeah.
how they determine that.
About that, they all expect, that's fine. About wetlands counting for, I think that was in this statement, and that base, I think, yeah.
Future open space. Areas within a district which a municipality may designate or require to be designated to be set aside in the future as dedicated open space through the use of a conservation restriction. That's not in the complete section. It says, such future open space may be subject to requirements under the 40R zoning for projects to be set aside for a fixed percentage of the site area as dedicated open space after districts other than starter home zoning districts, allowing such projects to deduct the dedicated open space when calculating housing densities. Notwithstanding the foregoing, the total future open space may not exceed 10% of what would otherwise be the developable land area if the developable land would be less than 50 acres. It may not exceed 20% of what would otherwise be the developable land area if the developable land area would be 50 acres or more. Shall be consistent with the current municipal dedicated open space of land.
Sounds like some lawyer wrote that.
Yeah.
The council.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And, I mean, wetlands obviously aren't developable.
Yeah.
So that-
And I think to your point, Randy, there are probably other instances within your town regulations where you are not using wetlands as like. part of the calculation.
Right, right.
Where was that language you were just reading?
It's in, so it's the
Definition?
And no, it's not.
It's an email that we received from, Bill from Jay.
Yeah.
Oh, right,
We'll
right.
forward it to you folks.
I believe I have a meeting in the next room.
Thank you, sir. Keep up the good work.
Yeah.
Andrew, I see you joined us. Do you have anything you'd like to ask or share?
No, I'm actually still driving, so I'm just gonna be listening and chime in when I have something to share.
Okay, great. We're about 10 minutes from wrapping it up. Yeah, so that would be good to see that. Yeah, because I want to read that and pour over it because it was sounding like it was a not exceed 10% or something, like
Or,
we're not maximizing open space.
yeah.
Right, right.
Or, but yeah. One detail, I was looking on the front page of the draft. There's the east sub-district and the west sub-district. And you have in parentheses, highway corridor and neighborhood village. I don't know if the highway corridor, they're all on the Route 9 corridor.
Oh, I see.
Do we want that to be the mall area? I don't know how to say that.
Oh, you
otherwise.
mean just naming it?
Yeah,
Is it all state highway, all of Route 9?
Yes.
Yeah, from up at Amherst to hit the bridge.
We can contemplate another name for that.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's where your big densities are, like, they're more intensely involved. Yeah.
Yeah, versus the village, right?
yeah. We're about there.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And I
And
think the planning board will give you, some additional considerations, but I also think that this is reflective of your committee's work, that you've thought and poured into the requirements for this, and I'm sure the planning board might have some initial conversation.
I'm thinking that something, this might be something that you send to the planning board.
Happy to.
I'll ask Bill,
Okay.
but, I'm thinking we submit it to them to be discussed at a certain meal. We give them a week or two to read through it. There's a lot there.
Do you want Mark? So I am going to be at the meeting on, June 2nd.
June 2nd.
And, you know, the planning board has PVPC, at the first meetings of the month.
Okay.
So do you want me to send it to them before that meeting?
Was that a weird meeting? Cause of,
So June 2nd is, we're having
Town election.
a town vote on the override.
Oh,
So that means we can't,
right.
I don't think it means we can't have public hearings, we can't make decisions.
Oh, okay.
So, I'll check with Bill, but I think that we could present all the information to the planning board
All right.
at that meeting.
Yeah.
And then maybe at the next available meeting, we have more of a back and forth and interaction
Okay.
and,
Okay.
but there, I think that's my understanding is that because it's an election.
Mm-hmm.
Fair.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so then June 2nd, do you think this committee should meet one more time? Do you think this was the last meeting?
Should we do a by-board meeting
Yeah, I mean, I would invite all of these members to come to the planning board that night and, but again, this is tentative and I will reach out to Mr. Dwyer
Okay,
Mhm.
and get his thoughts.
Sure.
And I'll get back to you.
great.
Um,
Yeah, I'll be there in the second, but I can also foresee this going another month to July if needed.
Is there actually a town meeting on the second or just?
No.
just an election?
Yeah, we had the town meeting where you had to be in the room at a certain hour. Now it's a vote, which should get better turnout because you have all day to get.
So it's like yesterday's vote, but a different issue.
Right, right.
Oh, this is like another second election.
Override, yeah.
Or second right
We-
vote.
We had our annual town meeting.
Yep.
Um,
Okay,
And that actually addressed the override but it was where it would be, how the funds would be allocated, and it passed.
Mm.
In theory, you would have had this other vote first. Does the town agree to have, to fund the
Yeah.
override?
okay,
Because as I understand it, what the town meeting did was just, so it could pass there and still fail, and then we have to go back and have another town meeting to rework the budget if we don't get
Yeah.
if it doesn't pass
right,
Mm.
June 2nd,
Mhm.
so.
okay.
But it's gonna pass. Think good thoughts.
Thank goodness, yes.
Talk to your
But
neighbors.
so half the people are at some ball game up in Turner's and I had this fear that,
it wasn't half. I was at the ballgame, but it wasn't.
I had fear that meant they realized they didn't have to come to the first meeting because they can vote it down when it comes to the
Yeah.
actual ballot.
Mm.
So. Good.
Great.
4 minutes left. Yeah, so I'll speak with Bill. I'll get an email off to you, Ken, to confirm or revise, the plan to have this committee attend the planning board, meeting that night,
So tentatively,
tentatively, yeah.
okay.
And that's,
Okay.
they start at 6:30, but they'll usually want to get the citizens out first before we get into a bigger issue like this.
Mhm.
So they'll probably, it used to be, we just went, however long we went, and people came in with whatever, but now you have to actually get on the agenda.
Mm,
So it's item by item, whereas we used to have it open.
Yeah,
gotcha.
oh,
Yeah.
that's
Makes sense.
That's
Yeah.
a change.
Yeah.
Okay,
So we would know where we were on the agenda. You don't know how long each item will take beforehand, but
So you said it usually starts at 6:30?
the meeting starts at 6:30. It used to be that we did 6:30 was open doors, so you could come in with questions, approval not required, whatever, and get our feedback, and then at 6:45, not before 6:45, or whenever those were all handled, then we would start the public hearings, so. All right, well, then, thank you, everyone. I will say for Evan Jacobs and for Rick Bermucci, if you are interested in joining and being a voting member of our committee, I think we currently have 5, and that would take us to 7 if you both want it, and that's fine.
Okay.
I would just have you email to planning@hadleyma.gov. The town is .org, but the emails are .gov. So Bill Dwyer is the secretary of the planning board, so he answers the planning at Hadley MA. If you just say, I'm interested, I would like to join, and then we can vote you on.
Okay.
So this committee will continue.
At least until, I would assume until the, whatever town meeting this faces, and probably one meeting after that, which would be, if it didn't pass, do we, it would be a question to the planning board, do we,
Well, I could always stay together, right? And just,
right?
every 6 months to continue to grow.
Well, what we've done is we've basically given feedback, but to the professionals. But our funding, our grant is
Yeah.
Got it.
is run aground.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
The agenda.
Oh,
I want other people to.
oh, no, it wasn't. I'm looking at it on the town website.
Oh, okay,
That's where I go.
that's,
So next
There we go.
meeting, and then we can adjourn.
June 2nd.
Well, June 2nd.
Mark.
Can you hear
Mark,
me?
we lost you. Yeah, we lost you for a bit on Teams.
But you can hear us now?
Yeah.
Yeah, like
You
the
hear me
last
now?
last minute or so.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah, we
that's-
lost about a minute.
Okay. We were just wrapping up and saying that the next meeting will be June 2nd, and if we're gonna have, we should schedule something after that for just, because that's a by board. Stick with a Wednesday at 4:30. June would be like the 10th or the 17th, I think. Is that right?
yes, that would be June 10th or 17th.
Let me see what my schedule looks like. Everybody look at your schedules.
I'm gonna say that the 10th is the better date, just because,
Okay,
unless, because we have an
Yeah.
event at 6 PM on the 17th.
and I've got something on the 17th, so,
That's okay for me.
so that would be a week after we meet with the planning board. So if that's okay with you, Andrew, we're talking about, we'd like everyone to meet on June 2nd, if you can, on Zoom with the planning board at 6:30. Well, the meeting starts at 6:30. I don't know where we'll be on the agenda. We'd like to present this draft to them. But then our next meeting would be the following, not that next day, but the 8 days later on the 10th, Wednesday, June 10th at 4:30.
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay, And
I have
hopefully-
something in the morning on the 2nd, but, I should be available for 6:30 without a problem.
okay, great.
And the other one's on Zoom, planning board?
Yes, the planning board, we've been Zoomed since COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the state has let us continue. All right, and I was, I don't know if that was cut out, but I was saying to Evan and to, Rick, that if you want to, send an email to, Bill Dwyer at planning@hadleyma.gov, and say, if you would like to become an official voting member, then please do that in the next week, so that that can be on the agenda for that June 2nd meeting, that the planning board has the power to appoint our members. So, all right, this is where I say, with no other questions or concerns, if everyone's all set? Okay. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. And that's when you say, I move.
So moved.
Okay, and do we have a second, Andrew?
I second.
All right. All voting members in favor, Ronnie,
Aye.
Mark Dunn, aye, Andrew,
Aye.